Arpey. I'm chair of the business division, and I have the honor of addressing you this morning to say welcome to our campus. We're really excited that you're here. I wanted to reference to you that over on this table, there are a number of degree program flyers, so take the time to grab one. We have the various different business degree programs that are listed over here. We also have our IT networking programs and information technology program flyers over here. We even have some representatives from our admissions office if anybody's so inclined to have questions for them. So wanted to say hello and greet you right now. I also wanted to give a huge shout out to your faculty members. You know, they are here because they care about you. And they've gone out of their way to facilitate an event like this. It takes a lot of their extra time, extra energy, and they're devoted in terms of seeing that you get to the place and point that you should be and experience something like this. So make sure you thank them because they go way beyond the scope of what's required. It's also my great pleasure to introduce to you the Vice President of Academic Affairs of SUNY Adirondack, Dr. John Jablonski, to say hello.
Well, thanks for that nice round of applause and good morning. Welcome to SUNY Adirondack. First of all, we're really pleased that all of you are here and we're filling up this room. This room wasn't here a couple of years ago, so we're particularly glad to be able to host you in one of our brand new buildings. Some other new stuff going on down there. As you make your way around campus today, hopefully you'll get a chance to see some more of SUNY Adirondack. Now, students, some of you I understand are seniors, juniors, maybe a few sophomores in the room. Anybody not a sophomore, junior, or senior? Oh good, so we got some freshmen. Yeah, anybody not yet a freshman? Anybody earlier in your school career than freshmen? So it looks like we've got grades 9 through 12 here. So that implies to me that maybe some of you have been here more than once. This is, by the way, this is the 26th annual business competition. 26th annual. None of you students are old enough to have been here for all those 26 years. But how many are here for the first time this year? Raise your hands. Good, good. A lot of first-time people. How many were here 2 years, including this one? This is your second. Got some returners. Watch out for them in the competition. They'll be experienced. Any students been here 3 years? Yeah? Got some ringers. 4? All right. Anybody more than 4? Probably not. Good. So we got a lot of new people and some people that are coming back again. Now, Professor Arpey sort of beat me to the punch because I was going to acknowledge some of your teachers too and people that are from your schools who made it possible for students to come here today. Let's do the same thing with teachers. This is the 26th annual. How many teachers, maybe some of the teachers are outside, so it's not going to be a scientific survey, but of those in the room, how many teachers are here for the first time this year? First year teachers. Good, we've got some, one in the back. Any teachers in the room that this is your second year? Good, welcome back. Third year? Now I know we have at least a couple of people that are 10 years or more. Yeah? I probably skipped over, I should have said 5 to 10 years. There's got to be some people in the middle there. 5 to 10? 10 years? And this one's for Nick. Where's Nick Patino? Anybody been here for more than 15 years to these contests? Wow! Wow! Well, welcome back. Thank you for your ongoing support. We have, thanks to our faculty members here at SUNY Adirondack, and I think I would recognize them, but many are out also setting up and doing the work. Thanks to them and the teachers that brought you here, we have a great program lined up. I'm going to get out of the way as soon as I say thank you to Professor Arpey, thank you to the other faculty members here, and thank you again to the teachers. I hope you have a great day. We've got an exciting keynote speaker who's about to take the stage, and then some of those contests and awards following that. So welcome or welcome back, as the case may be, to SUNY Adirondack.
Thank you, Dr. Jablonski. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to come over and address everyone. That's a hallmark of this college. For those of you that are thinking about coming here, dedicated administrators like Dr. Jablonski, dedicated faculty, and you'll see a number of them in the room. He referenced Professor Coutinho, who I think is in his 53rd year of affiliation with the college. Correct, 53 years. 5-3, I didn't misspeak. 53 years of affiliation. Faculty member here for over 50 years of teaching in the classroom. So, thank you, Dick, for coming to the event. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the speaker for. That's me. So, without further ado, I wanted to introduce the speaker for this morning. His name is Chris Degnan. He's a video game designer with 20 years of industry experience. In that time, he has worked with partners like Bungie, Sony, Games Workshop, and even Nickelodeon. He has had the good fortune to work on game franchises like Destiny, Crash, Bandicoot, and Skylanders. Chris, making interactive experiences is all about making people feel something, to feel excited, thrilled, surprised, delighted, and ultimately wanting more. After graduating from Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, which is RPI in Troy, with a bachelor's in science in electronic media arts and communication, Chris was fortunate enough to start working for a local startup. From there, he traveled north of the border to Vancouver, Canada, and then down the coast to sunny San Diego, before returning home to upstate New York. I'd like to welcome Chris.
Thank you very much. All right. Let's make sure this works. There we go. Hi, so I'm Chris Degnan. Been doing video games now for about 20 years, and before I start, we're going to do some more audience participation. Middle button? There we go. So how many, I'm sorry, I come down with the allergies. Is it that button? Nope, I just closed it down. Technical difficulties. So, there we go. Sure. How many of you play video games primarily on these? Cool. How many of you primarily play on one of these? Awesome. How many of you spend most of your time on these, where this is your primary video game platform? No? Okay. How many of you have played on one of these? Really? So that's astounding. So I ask because this is where I got my start. My very first video game design job was on SpongeBob SquarePants: Legend of the Lost Spatula. This was an hilarious experience, and this is where I got my start. This was over 20 years ago, and this was high-end at that point in time for a handheld console. Look at all those pixels. It was a really special thing. I got to work with Steve Hillenberg, who passed away recently, and he would give us notes for how close we were to the SpongeBob character, which is the funniest thing to have to explain to somebody, how 8 pixel areas could only have 4 colors, and we had to come up with a way to convey SpongeBob. This is where I got my start designing video games. SpongeBob is very special to me. How many of you like SpongeBob as well? Yeah. I love it. I had a stack of VHSs like this high. That's how old that is. A stack of VHSs. That was my library, and that's how I started designing video games. So we'll jump back a little. I started off in high school, right where all of you are, and and I really loved to draw. I spent a lot of time doing it. I had a best bud. We'd make comic books all day long together. But I went and I had a really bad portfolio review. Went up to school, and I had no idea. This was about expectations. My expectations of what a portfolio were wildly out of line with what teachers and colleges were actually looking for in a portfolio. And I got slammed, and it really emotionally hurt. And I said, well, screw that. Am I allowed to say screw that? No? Okay, I can't say that. And then so I went and did engineering instead. I had scored high on SAT math, I was okay at sciences, and I went to this other opportunity because it seemed like the one that was the straight path. It was like, this is the good pathway to go into a career. Problem is I wasn't very good at engineering because that's not where my heart was. And after a couple semesters at RPI, I was not doing very well at all in my grades. There was some very close to getting kicked out. Fortunately, I was able to switch over to their new EMAC program. This was in their communications department. And it was something brand new that they were trying. They were trying to integrate 3D, 2D, bring all of these studies together under one umbrella. 20 years ago, nobody had a designated video game design program, and this was the formative architecture for what would be a full design course. So, worst case scenario, you came out of there and you knew how to make web pages. Best case scenario, you come out of there and you can go right into a startup. And I was very fortunate to find a startup. RPI has an incubator project, and a startup video game company is one of the best places to go. I went, I talked my face off, and I got hired. And it was amazing. And I went right into doing QA work. That's what I was hired for, quality assurance. And so that's when I had the opportunity to go quickly from being a QA tester to doing 2D art for menus and UI screens. And then someone said, hey, you keep asking a lot of questions. How would you like to design one of these? That's the sort of nonsense that can only take place in a small startup. And it's a beautiful thing. If you, either with your friends or are very fortunate enough to find a startup is one of the few places where, hey, you're really qualified and you're doing a lot of stuff on your own. Would you like an opportunity to do more? And you say, yeah, I'll do more, absolutely. And that's how I ended up working on things like Time Force, Power Rangers. Anybody remember Power Rangers Time Force? Yeah, it's hard because they keep knocking them out every year. This was a hilarious opportunity. I was able to fly out to California, my first time flying out to California, and I got to go to the studio where they film Power Rangers. I don't know how many of you know this, but it's filmed first overseas in Asia, and then after every season wraps up over there, they send a whole stack of video over here, and the American producers look through this entire stack and go, how can we build a story out of all of this stuff? And it's wild. And the actors there, they all have parking stones. None of them have their names on it, they're just color-coded. Because the Rangers change out so quick, so they don't even bother putting their names down. And you see all the full-size prosthetic costumes and everything. It's an amazing experience. I also got to work on Crash Bandicoot the first time. This was a Naughty Dog was still in control of it at this point in time. And this is funny, I don't know if any of you played Tony Hawk on the GBA, but we were able to take the Tony Hawk skateboarding engine and put a Bandicoot in the middle instead of Tony Hawk, and we had him rolling around in a ball. Absolutely hilarious. And all of this was just kind of rolling from one project to the next, picking up new skills as I was going along. From there, so that's where we are. I did a bunch of titles over there, 3 years in Albany, and then I headed over to Vancouver. And there I worked on a whole bunch of other titles. Yeah. And Dawn of War, I don't know how many of you know the Warhammer 40,000 franchise. This was my first time working with them. Studio that owns it is over in the UK, Games Workshop. A lot of video games. Anyone heard the phrase licensed software before? Licensed software? So a lot of times somebody owns a thing, like Nickelodeon owns SpongeBob, Games Workshop owns Warhammer 40,000. They own that franchise, intellectual property, IP, and they say, well, we do a thing with it. They do tabletop games, Nickelodeon does cartoons and stuff like that. They don't make video games, so they take their IP, their intellectual property, and they say, hey, you make video games. Would you like to make a video game with our intellectual property? And sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes the answer is no. This was a really great opportunity. They were one of the greatest IP licensors I've ever worked with, because we basically, I like explosions, we got to make a ton of explosions and throw bodies everywhere. It was a lot of fun, and it revolutionized RTS gameplay, our real-time strategy. What else did I work on there? We carried on to next year, and you can see how the quality of everything got a little better. There's a really cool thing that happens in software, in the entertainment software particularly. You work on it 1 year, you ship it. You work on it the next year, you get to do even better. You know the tools, you know the subject matter that you're making, and you get to just have more fun with it. It's a really a great way to do is just to keep making on the same content platform. Click. There we go. Company Heroes. Company Heroes, #1 rated RTS. I don't know if that means anything to any of you, but it was really fun for us to work on. This was one of those really funny instances where a lot of people were looking at screenshots like this and they're going, wow, that's kind of a crappy first-person shooter. But that was the thing, is that we weren't a first-person shooter. We were a top-down army strategy game. So you had 50-odd guys running around per team, blowing holes in doors. That was absolutely amazing technology that was years ahead of its time, the ability to pop a hole through any surface on any building, and then the army men would stand in the windows and shoot back at you. It was so much fun. It was a really competitive game, and I spent more years developing a World War II game than World War II actually took place, which was very funny. Great experiences. This was an example of something that was, anyone know about the sales curve of a particular product or a particular franchise? So this one, RTSs in particular, have a very low sales spike. They come out and they don't sell that many. 100,000 units, 200,000 units. Everybody knows Avengers Endgame has done how many billion in sales in the first week? That's considered a very high sales spike. This is a very low sales spike because it's an RTS, but it's a long tail, which means it just keeps selling and selling and selling forever. Not much, but it does just keep selling forever. Dawn of War was paying off royalties 5 years after we released it because it just kept selling units. Company of Heroes didn't go into the black until 6 years after it was released. And that was because it was an incredibly ambitious title that just not enough people can play when it came out. Got to know what your audience has. What kind of PCs are they running? People couldn't play the game when it first came out because not enough people had a PC that was high-end enough. It was bizarre. It was a lot of fun though. And then I worked on Space Marine. Space Marine. Back to Warhammer 40,000. This was a third-person action adventure game. All about Gabriel Angelos running around and hitting people with his sword. It was a lot of fun. You get to do a lot of silly things when you're in video games. And then, special moments like this, where any crazy idea, hey, you know, what if we were in a flying kind of spaceship thing and it was on fire, we're being attacked by orcs with rocket packs. Yeah, that sounds great, make that happen. Okay, cool. The imagination is the limit, and that's really a great place to be, is when you have a tool set that allows you to create crazy imagination and someone says, just go make it awesome, go make it memorable. Really fun. And then this, I don't know if anyone played this, but this is where you smash his face in. So, good times. From there, like I said, I went down the coast, down to San Diego. This was a high-risk, potentially high-reward scenario. There was a studio down there called Triumph, and I don't think I go into a full slide here. They had a game, and they had paid somebody else several million in several years to try to make this game, and it wasn't going well. And they were looking to create a new team to just try to get this thing out the door. And at this point, I was married, had a kid, and they were willing to pay a lot of money to help make this happen. And it's one of those points in your life where you say, is it worth the risk, right? Is the high salary worth the low stability? And you have to ask yourself, you have to ask your family, is this worth the risk? You'll find yourself asking yourself that question a lot in life. Maybe, maybe not. In this particular instance, we went for it, and it was cool. I got to live in San Diego for a year, and it's really nice for some people. I don't like the desert. I like it where it's gray and crappy, and at least it's green. But it was really neat. Like, I learned about MTX, microtransactions. I learned about games as a service, supporting live games, that whole like 24/7 model where you're always on call, something can always go wrong. It was a really neat professional experience, and I'm very glad that we took that risk. But yeah, San Diego was a home for us. So after a year, they shuttered the project because they lost, as an organization, they lost faith in it, and they didn't think it was going to return their investment. So we came back home. And got to make a whole bunch of new games, and really cool franchises back over here. And on the way back, I think the first one that should come up is, Skylanders. Have you played Skylanders? So I'm really sorry. The game is designed to make you want to buy as big a collection as possible. This was the level that I got to work on in particular. Neat thing about Skylanders is you got to know your business model. How many people play Pokemon? Right? Any of these experiences where it's all about collection, how big is your collection, do you have everything that you need? The Toys to Life market was really started with Skylanders, and then Disney Infinity and Lego got into it, and it really became a packed market. And eventually Activision pulled out of the Toys to Life market, but it's very interesting as a business model to look and say, why did this do so well? And it wasn't the video game sales. The actual video games themselves, the number of units sold, wasn't that high. The place where this really was profitable, and over $3 billion in profit, was the plastic toys. The plastic toys, which they didn't articulate, right? The arms didn't bend until the last series where we made the cars, wheels that moved and things like that. They were fixed plastic toys, incredibly cheap. Cents to build, but you can sell them for $15, and that's where the profit was made, right? Simple RFID chip inside. So when you're thinking about innovation, when you're thinking about business models and how are you going to create something and bring it to the market, we had a company that we worked with that was all about taking the 3D model that we presented them. This was the video game 3D model. And they would look at that 3D model and they'd help us figure out how to turn it into a plastic toy in the most efficient way possible. Oh, you've got 6 colors on there. If you drop it down to 5, it's going to cost you 2 cents less per unit. Ooh, you want to split that into 2 pieces? That's 2 different RFID chips. Oh, and you're talking about rare earth magnets. That's going to be really expensive. You're adding 10 cents per unit, right? And when you multiply that by how many millions of these that we made, that really adds up. So it's an interesting study, if any of you are interested in that sort of thing, about how do you make a big profit when you go into these games? What is your business model? I also got to do the Crash Bandicoot. This was Sony, for me, it was coming back to something. How many have played Crash Bandicoot? Oh, that's awesome. So this was absolutely super cool. We rebuilt it from the ground up. We had all of the original data files, but none of the engine. So we had a 3D mesh showing us the entire level, and we had to figure out exactly how do we build this from the ground up. Everything was rebuilt from scratch. All of the enemies, the crates, how they bounce, how they interact with each other. It was absolutely wonderful. It was less than a year long. In 1 year, a team that knew the tool and knew the franchise. We had our super fan on board, absolutely amazing. He knew the games inside and out. He was a better resource than YouTube. And we were able to put 3 games into 1 year and add Coco as a playable character wherever we could. And that was entirely about the passion of the people working on the project. Without a doubt, one of the best games I've ever worked on. It was absolutely a wonderful experience. And it looked pretty too. There's Coco. Hi, Coco. And then on to Destiny. Does anyone play Destiny here? Right? Destiny is absolutely from like one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. Like from having fun and playing around with a bunch of cartoon animals to being in space blowing up aliens. I like blowing things up. So this was a super cool. Anybody recognize this? Anybody know what part of the game this is? This is from the Raid on the Leviathan, Destiny 2. It was really great to be part of the Raid team. Anyone here who plays Destiny also a Raider? Anybody? Oh, I got 1 hand, 2 hands up. Yeah, it's really it's an intimidating experience to come at it from a creator standpoint because you're making content for the highest end gamers. Right? You're looking at the how many 10 million people play Destiny, less than 100,000 play the Raid. It is such a small part of the community, but it is such an impactful part of the community because it is a spectacle experience. It was one of the coolest parts of my job, where after we had made the content, after it had went live, we were all able, everybody that was part of it, were able to sit down in one of our meeting rooms, and we had Twitch streams for 4 of the biggest players up, and we were watching them all race through, trying to be the first to solve our puzzles. Watching them live, real time, breaking down and deconstructing the designs that we put in, hearing them make guesses, hearing them make wrong guesses and cringing, so like, no, don't do that, oh, God. And then watching somebody take a wrong turn, watching them get so close and then messing up. It's a really great place to be in the industry right now because you do have this very tight loop between you as a creator and your audience. You can go on Twitch and you can see your audience right there experiencing the content that you made for them. Very few other people get to have that kind of experience. And it's really amazing. From being the lead on the Raid, they gave me an entire pack to work on. Black Armory was all about guns. And there's 801, she's a robot, or an exo. And this was an incredibly challenging and equally rewarding experience. I spent, for this one, a lot of time flying back and forth from here to Seattle and back again. I was out and back about once a month for about 6 months. It's not my favorite way to kind of operate, but it was definitely a very interesting experience. Being able, at this point, for this one, to sit down with some Twitch streamers and have one-on-one conversations with them and prime them for what we're going to release, talking about the content that we're making, some of the decisions, what their takeaway is, getting some business strategies at the high level for how we want to take the franchise forward. Really, really great. Bungie is an amazing studio, and I'm very fortunate enough to work with them. Projects come and go. If you've gotten anything from this, in 20 years I've been all over the place. And it's the sort of thing where it's not a regular steady work, right? It's cyclical. Projects take anywhere from a year or 2, and nothing's forever. So you always have to be thinking about what am I going to do when this project runs out. That's kind of a hard lesson. Some people want to go, I'm in something and it's going to see me through for 20, 30, 40 odd years. Not so much in the industry. In the video game industry, there's a lot of project turnover, a lot of cycles. So you're always thinking about what happens next. People versus project. When you're working, it's not always what you're working on, it's who you're doing it with. I worked on some pony stuff, some Barbie stuff, some Boo Foo stuff. I worked on a lot of silly things. Oh, why would you ever work on something that's ridiculous? Didn't matter. I was with a great group of people, right? And that's part of the point, is you make a game with people, you work on a project with people. If you like the people that you work with, then you can get away working on a lot of things that otherwise you wouldn't necessarily enjoy. Mobility is good, right? You kind of saw how I bounced around in video games. There are a couple major hubs in Seattle, in Texas, in California. A few opportunities here in New York, which is really astounding. But there's pockets of opportunities. It's not something like if in the medical profession, the teachers, lawyers of various types, where you can kind of get a job almost anywhere. There's a lot more flexibility, there's a lot more opportunities. Video games are really cool, but there's only a couple of places where you can go work if you want to work for somebody else. You want to work for yourself, hey, you can work anywhere. And then risk versus stability. This is a game that you'll play your entire life. It's really hilarious. How much risk am I willing to take on versus how much stability is offered by this opportunity? It's a really great metric to kind of judge every opportunity that comes by and say, well, how is this? Is this paying me really well? Does that mean I'm putting it away? There's some instances where you'll get stock options. Stock options mean a lower base salary, but hey, I was able to pay off my student loans because of stock options. That's pretty cool. Something that you evaluate every time you go into an opportunity. What is the risk? What is the stability opportunity here? Some just general good lessons about how a studio or any group is built. It's the studio sandwich, yay! Up top, you have your kind of executives and your directors, and they are the ones that help guide and direct your organization. This is video games in particular, but you can kind of extrapolate out. In the middle are all the content people, audio, cinematics, artists, designers, engineers. They are the ones that create content. They are the ones that provide the structure that everybody else then supports. And then the other side of the bun is IT, production, reception, and facilities. These are all the people that help make the studio run. They support the directions, they support the people. And when everything is in balance, it's pretty awesome. But you can see in some instances where you potentially have way too much influence on one of your creatives, or you've got way too many executives and not enough content creators, or in some instances where you have very little support structure up above, very little support structure down below, but you are a tech-heavy sort of operation. When you look at an organization, you can see how it's structured and see where they put in their priorities. I've worked at studios that had a whole lot of management. I've worked at studios that had a whole lot of artistic direction or a whole lot of engineering direction, so it was all about the tools and how you were solving problems, not necessarily what problems were you solving. It's a great way to think about an organization when you start interacting with them. Where have they put their people priorities, and how does that reflect on the goals of the organization at large? So, you want to go into games, huh? There's lots of education opportunities these days. You can go to many institutions and there will be something in the games department. You can go online and with Steam, with Lumberyard for Amazon, Unreal, you can get professional grade tools pretty much anywhere. There are studios of all sizes that you can find your home. You can create your own studio. You can, because you can download professional grade tools, just start building something if that's what you want to do. There is lots of competition though. With all of the schools out there, there's a lot of people that are taking those classes, and you will face stiff competition, which means that you do need to be one of the best if making video games is what you want to do. You have to determine, are you going to be a generalist and have broad appeal, or are you going to get really good at one sort of thing? And then the experience versus getting hired. The QA route, I don't know if any of you have heard of the QA route. QA is a great opportunity to get your foot in the door, but you have to be careful about it because not every place has a QA structure that allows you to get promoted up into a non-QA position, into a content position. It's something to take a very close eye at. I've seen some people, especially in the studios that I've worked with, where they get caught in the QA trap, where you just cycle out of 9-month contracts and you don't really have a growth opportunity that gets you into a full-time position. You have to be diligent about the organization that you're going to go work for. And then final thoughts. Follow your dreams. This was something that I didn't do when I started. You really need to understand what your passion is. What's going to make you happy? What do you see yourself doing for 20, 30 years? Try to follow your dreams. Try to make it financially viable. Give it a go. Because this is my goal in life. I want to love my job as much as SpongeBob loved his. Right? So I think that's it. No time for questions? Yeah. So we're just going to end it right there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Chris. We appreciate it. It's Chris Decknan. He came here to help us out today. You know the theme is Game On. The reason why we choose a theme every year is because we have a pitch-it competition. We have 4 schools that are pitching their ideas for a game application. In the future, we would love your ideas going forward about what other pitch-it concepts we could have here at High School Day. So we'll be looking to hand out a survey to our teachers and hopefully they'll get it to you all. So we have 4 buildings. Can everyone look and see where their first test is for me? And I think we have a room change. School